about the books that I read for the last 40 years. And today I have my special guest. He is a marriage counselor, therapist, as well as an author and the author of the book, The Couples Communication Handbook. No other than Mr. Raffi Bilek.
Hi, thanks for having me on.
Welcome to Book 101, Mr. Raffi. And can you please introduce more about yourself that I missed?
Sure, yeah. So, like you said, I'm a marriage counselor. I work with couples across the globe, and it's really meaningful to me. So, trying to spread the word out there about getting relationships dialed in, getting communication improved. I live here in Baltimore, where I run a private practice, but I have limited reach when I'm just talking one on one. So, I thought I'd put this book out there and try to help more people.
Mr. Raffi Bilek, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom with the world. Hoping for more and more empowering books like this to come. What inspired to Oh yes, what inspired you to focus specifically on the communication skills couples were not taught growing up?
So, most of the couples that come in start off right away by saying, we need help with communication. We've got communication problems. And I think that a lot of couples really feel that way. And having fielded that over and over with my clients and having tried to help them and giving them the same tools over and over, I said, you know what? I could really make this reachable by a lot more people and accessible to a lot more people. I just thought that putting a book together where I could get the message out and give people some clear, actionable tools to making this different would really be helpful.
How do you define healthy communication in a marriage versus how much couples actually communicate?
So I think a lot of couples recognize that they want to communicate, should communicate, do communicate, but either they don't quite know how, or they try and they get into the same arguments over and over, or they just feel very blocked and don't feel safe talking to each other. So I think healthy communication is where people feel like they can open up any topic and it'll be okay, and we can resolve issues together and we can connect regardless of what we're talking about. And I think when people have that, they have a great relationship. And when you have a great relationship, you have a really great life.
Great life indeed. I want that great life, Mr. Rafi. Why do even well intentions couples struggle to implement communication advice they read about?
You're asking what I think about why even well-intentioned folks don't get where they want to go with communication.
Yes,
Yeah,
please.
I think, like I say, just in the subtitle, we aren't really taught the skills we need to make this work. And certainly in Western culture, we're so goal focused and driven that we're trying to get to the end of the process before we even start it. Plus with the way the world works nowadays, we expect everything to be done. If the microwave isn't working and you have to cook up your food without it, it takes 10 minutes. You feel like you're spending all this time. If your website takes 10 extra seconds to load, it feels like forever. So you want to have a conversation. We feel like we should get to the end. Let's solve the problem. But you can't solve a problem that you don't understand. And people so often want to get to the end and solve the problem, but they don't spend any time like talking and sharing what is the problem, what's hurting me, what's hurting you. And when we spend the time to understand that and really get deeper into it, the communication links up much better. And ironically, the solutions come much more easily. But I think people are skipping right to the end of the process, and so it becomes very conflictual.
Yes, you need to see what is the problem first, people. Skill development. What is the most fundamental communication skill couples should master first?
I would say the first thing people have to master is waiting. Waiting. People want to jump into it, and I feel the same way. Sometimes something's bothering me, and I want to tackle it right away. But I know at this point in my life that that's not going to be the right way, because when I am charging and revved up, the conversation is not going to go so well. I'm going to go too fast. I'm not going to listen well. I'm going to get snippy. And maybe that's when the nasty things start to come out. It is very compelling to want to talk about things right away. But what I tell everybody is the first thing is when something's bothering you really bad, don't talk about it. Take some space, take a break. Also, when you're in a conversation that heats up and isn't going well, take a break. It comes up much better. It is hard to stop, it is hard to wait for sure. It comes out much better.
Much better indeed. So, how do you help partners break the cycle of reactive arguing and shift to a productive dialogue?
Sure. So let's assume that we've already taken our break, we're back, and we're relatively calm. Because if we're not relatively calm, then none of the tools are going to work anyways, because you're in fight or flight mode. So either you're running away or you're fighting your partner. So let's assume we're past that. Things have calmed down a little bit. So I'll tell people we're going to divide this into two. First, you're going to speak, and I'm going to listen to you. And then I'm going to speak, and you're going to listen. We're not going to ping pong it back and forth, because you know how that goes. I'll say this, you say this, it goes up real quick. Instead, I want you to totally listen to me. I'm going to tell you what's going on for me. I'm going to tell you why I'm upset about the fact that you left the empty milk bottle in the fridge, or squeezed the toothpaste from the bottom, or put the forks the wrong way in the dishwasher. Let me tell you why that's upsetting to me. And you just listen to me and understand what that is. And you'll reflect back to me. And there's a whole series of skills I teach, which we can talk about. But then once you understand me, then we'll switch. And then you'll tell me what's bothering you, and I'll hear you out. And now we're both feeling a lot more heard instead of jockeying to get our feelings heard and validated.
What's your framework for teaching active listening that actually works in heated moments?
Great. So again, it depends how heated it is. If it's very heated, I tell people stop. But let's say there's a difficult issue and people are reasonably under control and feeling okay. So like I said, we split it into two, one speaking, one listening. And then the framework that I use is something called LOVE, which is the best acronym ever, of course, is LOVE, LOVE, meaning when you are the listener, you're doing four things and four things only. You're going to listen, you're going to reflect in your own words, you're going to validate, and you're going to empathize. Anything besides those is not going to help you right now. So if I'm the listener here, I'm going to listen to what you're saying. I'll reflect it back in my own words. Okay, so when I forget the dry cleaning, you're now frustrated because you don't have the suit that you need to wear. Yeah. Okay. So I'm checking that I get it, that I got the right points that you wanted to make. Then I validate and I say, you know what, that makes sense. I get why you'd be upset about that. Anybody would be upset about that. That makes sense. That's validation. If I don't get why that makes sense, I need to clarify that. Like, why are you mad when I tie my shoes? Right? So that might not make sense to me, but I have to understand from you why that is. And once I get it and I validate it, then I empathize. I say, that really stinks. I'm really sorry you feel that way. I haven't agreed that I've done anything wrong. I'm just saying I understand how you feel and I really empathize with you that it feels rough. That brings us into connection.
Very well said, Mr. Ruffy. Beautifully articulated. How can couples identify their unique communication pitfalls?
I think that if you want to really get a good sense of what your specific pitfalls are, the best thing is getting to an outside professional, a third party who can spot that. Because I think this book is very helpful for a lot of people, but I also think there's a lot of value to having somebody from the outside say, you know what, here, right here is where you're going off track. It's very hard to observe yourself in the process, trying to do it and trying to see where you go off. And that's true, for anything. If you're shooting basketball, you have a coach on the side observing you saying, you know what, when you took that shot, your elbow should be a little straighter or something. You can try to do it on your own, and there is some value to that. But it's having somebody from the outside to pick up on where you're going off track can be the most helpful. So if people are trying to figure out what is wrong specifically in their situation and specifically in their interactions, I think getting in front of a couples coach or a counselor can really be a helpful way of doing that.
What role does emotional regulation play before effective communication can happen?
Great question, right? So that's what I was talking about before is that if you are dysregulated, if you're ramped up, you're super angry about something, that's not the time to talk about something. So you go away, you take a break. And when you are taking that break, you are trying to regulate yourself, meaning you'll take deep breaths, you'll do yoga, you'll go for a jog around the block, or watch YouTube, or knit, or dance, or whatever it does that will help you get your mind off thinking about this obnoxious thing that your partner did and get you back into a calmer space. When you're in a difficult conversation, you're hopefully trying to regulate yourself, notice when you're getting too ramped up. But again, if you cross that line and you feel like you're out of control, you need to take a break. So emotional regulation is key, because if you are dysregulated, you are not going to have a good conversation.
Let's talk about the practical application, Mr. Rafi. What's a simple exercise from your book that creates immediate improvement?
Good. So there's a list, sort of a ladder of exercises people can do in there to implement this process, which I call empathic dialogue. Where, so let's say, take the beginning level, right? What I said before is that we want to separate it so that I listen to you and then you listen to me and we switch. So this becomes difficult when we are both fighting about the same topic. But the first step people can take is to think of something from before you guys knew each other, some event from your past, your childhood, maybe before you were in communication, before you were in touch, and something that had emotional resonance in your life, whether it was positive or negative. Your dog died, or you graduated from high school, or whatever, some big moment in your life. And do that process for this. So I'll share with you when I graduated how exciting it was for me and why it was meaningful to me and how much I struggled to get there. And you will respond back to me with the love process, meaning you'll listen, you reflect back in your own words. Okay, Rafi, so it's very exciting for you when you get great. You'll validate. That makes sense. You'll empathize. Wow, I'm so happy for you that you had that experience, right? So it's much easier there, because you have no agenda in my story about my high school graduation, and I have no agenda in your story about your dog that died when you were 6 years old, or whatever it might be. And if I can hear you and you can hear me, we get this practice of my stepping into your world and leaving my own behind, which is critically important and much more difficult when I have an agenda in that issue.
How should couples handle conversations when one partner is more communicative than the other?
It depends. There's a range of normal in just about anything. And so some people are like, very quiet and reserved, and some people are very, very talkative. And that's great. And there's, of course, things that are dysfunctional, like somebody who refuses to talk about anything ever, and somebody who can't stop talking. But every couple has differences on some important issues. And for couples where one of them wants to talk a lot and the other one wants to talk a little bit, so it's important for both of them to try to bend inwards a little bit, where one person will try to accept that their partner is not so talkative and, like, okay, we'll spend time together with less talking. And the other one will try to speak up a little bit more. And they will practice sort of moving towards each other a little bit. You're not going to change who you fundamentally are. And you can't do everything in marriage 50-50, because that's not really realistic. It's an ideal, but not a real way to handle things. So bending towards each other to the extent that is possible, and trying and keeping an open mind, and using some of these techniques that make it easier.
Using those techniques, people. And Mr. Rafi, what strategies work for discussing hot bottom topics without escalating conflict?
Yeah, right. So, this is definitely designed to work with hot button topics: money, in laws, sex, all those good stuff. Um, and again, I think it just takes being deliberate. If you practice the skills on smaller issues beforehand, then you have them handy when you need them for the big issues. So, again, we'll split into two. I will listen to you, you will listen to me, and we go through them slowly, one step at a time. If I feel myself starting to escalate, maybe I'll take a break. And another important point to throw into the mix here is that it's really helpful to have two separate conversations. The first conversation is the exploration conversation, where we explore what the issue is. Because, as I said before, you can't fix a problem that you don't understand. So we're going to spend one conversation just understanding what the problem is, and we're not going to talk about a solution. We are not going to talk about how we're going to end up spending the money. We are not going to discuss where we're going for Thanksgiving. We're just saying, here's how I feel going to your parents for Thanksgiving, and here's how you feel if we don't go to your parents for Thanksgiving. And we'll talk about how that feels to us and what it means to us. And then once I totally understand you and you totally understand me, then we'll go to a second conversation, maybe right away, maybe later on, but only then will we talk about what we're actually going to do. And when we take the solution part out of it, the pressure is off in that initial conversation to really open up and understand what's going on without having to make the problem go away.
How can couples maintain these skills during stressful periods? And how can make the situation less more approachable?
So, putting this into real life can be difficult, especially for people with young children, jobs, whatever it is. Life is busy. And so, recognizing that problems are not going away as quickly as you would like. Certainly, with the big issues like child rearing, finances, these are long term issues. And it's not one conversation where we sit down and solve the problem. Rather, it's a series of conversations where we stay in touch with each other. So when times are stressful, that might not be the time to sit down and have a conversation. It might be just a time to support each other. And using this empathic dialogue can be helpful, meaning if you're having a tough time because work has been really stressful lately. So maybe you'll tell me about that, and I'm not going to try to make the problem go away. I'm not going to offer suggestions. I just want to hear you, and I'll listen, reflect, validate, empathize, and say, okay, yeah, your boss is a real jerk. Like I get that. I get how hard that is for you, without trying to give you advice on how to fix it. And when you can dump that on me and feel supported and feel heard and validated, that helps us bring down our stress. So we have to be prepared for reality, which is that there's a lot of stuff going on in our lives. But if we keep these conversations going in all aspects of our lives, then when we can make the time, we'll be able to sit down and have a good conversation about the difficult things.
Mr. Raffi, as a marriage counselor, therapist, as well as an author, what are your short term and long term goals?
My short-term goals are just to keep helping people get clients coming in the door so that I can help them get the happiness, the good relationship, the good life they're looking for. That's also part of my long-term goals. I'd love to get the book out there. I'd love to get it into more people's hands. And I'd love to get a greater audience where people can shoot some questions at me and I can answer them and maybe help other people with the same questions. There's a lot of noise out there. There's a lot of couples counselors out there, and there are many good ones and many not so good ones. I'm one of the good ones, just by the way. And I would love to be able to increase my reach where I can just help people on a larger scale. Because really, the relationships in our lives are where the happiness lives. And I want to bring that out to the world.
Good luck to your goals, Mr. Raffi, and looking forward for more
Thank you
success.
so much.
Yes, and can you please give a piece of advice for those people out there who want to be like you?
Oh, nobody's like me, Daniel. Okay. For people who want to be like me in terms of professionally or personally.
Yes, both,
Well,
please.
okay. So I definitely practice what I preach, and I've been through the ringer. It is hard sometimes to wait, to have a conversation. It can be difficult conversations. It takes humility and flexibility, really looking inside and saying, you know what, this is what I want my relationship to be like. I will hear them out. I will hear my partner out. I will understand where they're coming from. One of the things I say in my book is that the three most important words in a marriage are help me understand. So bringing that into your life and your relationship, I think will get you to a good relationship. And professionally, look, if you have ideas, if you want to work with couples also or work with whoever and want to put out a book, I say, push yourself, go for it. I don't have all the answers in terms of how to be successful. I'm not the most successful author or couples counselor in the world. I just want to help people. So I feel like following that passion and really putting that into practice has helped me a lot.
Thank you for that advice. Mr. Raffi, and can you please recommend a book or books that influence your journey?
So I can't use my book because that didn't influence my journey. I hope it influences other people's journeys. Um,
Yes.
a book that influenced my journey. I'm trying to think. Um, One of them is called "Raising Roses Among Thorns," but that is a particularly niche thing. It's for a religious audience. It's a religious Jewish thing. So I'm not sure that's helpful for the world at large. But it really impacted me. Another one is The Seven Habits of Highly Effective People. I like that. Definitely recommend that one. Um, and Nonviolent Communication was a great book. I love the principles. I hate the title, but I love the principles, and there's a lot of alignment with what I do. So those are some good books that I've been impacted by.
Thank you for that recommended books, Mr. Raffi. And let's talk about the broader impact. How might teaching these skills pre-marriage change divorce statistics?
I think that it would help a lot. I mean, people get into fights about everything and anything. and being able to communicate and connect and get over those humps would do a lot for people. I mean, I've used this kind of process with people facing infidelity. That is a big factor in a lot of divorces. I've helped a lot of people overcome that problem, use this communication skill. And I really think that this would impact society at large. And if more people were communicating in this way, not just in their marriages, but in their workplaces, in their broader communities, on a national level, I think it could really change things. I talk about that in the conclusion. Like, I really think that this could change the direction of, especially in the U.S. right now. The political situation is so tense. I wish more people were engaging in empathic dialogue with each other.
Hmm, indeed. And what societal myth about good communication does your book challenge?
Yeah, I've got a good one there. You may have heard this. It's called "Never Go to Bed Angry." You ever heard that one?
Yes.
Grandma teach you that one? Never go to bed angry. I think that's terrible advice, right? Because, like I said, when you're angry, is the worst time to talk about something. Everyone knows this. It's midnight and you're mad at your partner, and you decide you're going to say something and try to hash this out right here, right now. And the next thing you know, it's 3 o'clock in the morning, and you're still angry, and now you're tired on top of it. It doesn't work for most people. Trying to push through all the way something just grates on your nerves. It's exhausting, and it's not necessary. Go to bed angry. It's not going to kill you. Face the opposite direction in the bed, and everyone knows that you're angry, and that's okay. You'll wake up in the morning, you'll be calmer, you'll be in a better place to talk about something. It is totally fine to go to bed angry.
Totally, totally fine. For sure. And Mr. Rafi, what's the connection between communication quality and sexual intimacy in marriage?
I think for a lot of people, having an emotional connection present is really important for having a good sexual relationship, and being able to communicate, not just about, certainly about the intimate topics is a critical skill, but outside the bedroom. They say that foreplay begins in the kitchen, when you start washing the dishes for your partner. There's a lot of stuff that goes into a good intimate relationship besides what's happening in bed. And so being able to feel connected, to feel safe, when someone knows that they can be who they are, share what's really inside them, on a verbal and emotional level, that brings it into the physical realm as well. I mean, it can be safe and vulnerable and comfortable with each other, and it certainly improves a sexual relationship.
Mr. Rafi, before we wrap up our discussion for today, I'm inviting you to please do listen to my other podcast, people. My other podcast, because my abstract essay is already in fifth season, abstract poetry in second season, and my book 101 review in fifth season too. Comedy 101 in second season, and my food 101 in fifth season as well. Geography 101 in fourth season, and my baby podcast Law 101 and Mental Health 101 Love Letters in its third season, and Movie 101 Review and Music 101 in fourth season, and Science 101 and Sex 101 in its first season. Please listen to them wherever you listen your podcast. So, Mr. Rafi, if couples could only implement one lesson from your book, what would have the biggest impact?
Very clear to me, taking a break. That would have the biggest impact. There's a lot of couples out there that know how to communicate, that are decent at communicating, are very articulate, but they can't get it to happen because they're trying to do it when they're ramped up, and when their frontal lobes are off, and the back brain is lit up and they're in fight or flight. I think for so many people, just taking a break, come back to it later, go to bed angry if you have to, I think that would make a huge difference.
Mr. Raffi Bilek, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world. So can you please invite our listeners to support your book, your advocacy, or whatever projects that you're doing right now?
Yeah, you can find this book on Amazon. It is an ebook, paperback, hardcover, audiobook. If you like listening to me talk, you get 7 hours and 29 minutes of it there. If you go to communicationbook.com, you can get the first 2 chapters for free and check it out.
Check it out, people. Let's support Mr. Raffi Bilek because if you support him for sure, more and more empowering books like this to come, more and more empowering coaching to come. So, Mr. Raffi, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks for having me.
More to come, people. See you soon.